it is a meal. That's not bad. I mean, you can seriously survive on a can of chunky soup. Well, I get them, of course, because A, I'm super healthy, and B, I'm super cheap. And I determined something today, Bonnie. It would be very of great interest to you. Not that it's of great interest to anybody, but it could be of great interest to you. But here's the deal. And you're listening to KOAN and KVNT 6 minutes after the hour. I found where all the meat was from the sirloin burger chunky soup. Because you get, most of the cans you open, there's 2 or 3 pieces in there somewhere. So you have to cut them into like 10 little pieces. So you get like a teeny tiny little sliver of sirloin burger, which is absolutely delicious. I don't know how they make it. And then you get a little piece of meat in every bite. So that's the way you do it. Well, I found all the meat because I thought, this is just not fair. There's something seriously wrong with my chunky soup. I remember having chunky soup earlier, and they would have 3-4 times. I had one thing of chunky soup. It was almost completely full of meat. I eat little sirloin burgers, probably like 100 little pieces of sirloin burger in there. So that's where it all went. There's an unequal distribution of sirloin burger. We have to have communism for my chunky soup. That's where I'm trying to go with this. That's where I'm at. Okay. And that makes your chunky soup more healthy and happy. Just your regular, everyday, average communist message. Subversive. You weren't supposed to catch on to it, but I wanted to send it out there. 569-1080. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Wing Wednesday. And I've got the thing right there. So we're doing Wing Wednesday. What happened last Wednesday? Was I off? What happened?
No, we completely forgot about it.
We're not forgetting Wing Wednesday.
I forgot about it. It's all my fault.
Yeah.
Blame Bonnie.
Nope, not going to do that. It's all my fault. I want to cover a whole bunch of news today. There's just about, 30 stories at the top of my news cycle, and I'm really looking forward to it. But I would love to hear from you as well. Anything on your mind here on Wing Wednesday should be on the program. You should give us a call, 569-1080, 357-5868. Bergdahl. I read this story in the Alaska Dispatch News, and I know that these guys are trying to give me some kind of complex, or they're trying to get me to go to a mental health professional, something. They're trying to send me over the edge. I was here, and I don't have a great memory, but I do remember the Bergdahl prisoner swap and all the problems with it. Now, maybe these guys don't know about any of the problems with it. I'm out reading the piece on Bergdahl and him getting let free, and I'm surprised. First of all, I was shocked. I was shocked to my core that they covered it at all until I read the piece. U.S. military charges former J-Bear soldier with desertion. If George Bush had let a deserter go and transferred murderous people who had killed Americans for a deserter, do you know what would happen on the story? Well, they might mention that. I don't know. I think they might. It's pretty important. It's kind of neat. Maybe it's part of the story. Maybe you could mention it. Well, let's see. Do they get into President Obama, who every moderate, every common sense independent, every libertarian, every conservative, every person in the Republican Party, anybody who's not a hardcore Democrat knows he's not very trustworthy having to do with foreign policy. Not really. He's going around, I think America is great like Greece is great. Really? And I'm not talking about the Greece that you fry your French fries with. I'm talking about the country Greece. Yeah, the bankrupt country where they have 30% unemployment and they just put communists in charge of everything. That Greece. So here we've got a president who was completely in charge at the time. He was going against every on-air personality other than people on MSNBC, which nobody watches. And they didn't even mention it. I'm going to go through paragraph 1. No mention whatsoever of President Obama. Paragraph 2, no mention whatsoever of President Obama or his administration. Paragraph 3, no mention. Paragraph 4, no mention. Paragraph 5, no mention. Paragraph 6, no mention. 7, 8, 9, they get into Senator Lindsey Graham. Are you listening to this, Bonnie? Is this crazy? We're talking about the president He actually traded 5 murderers, 5 terrorist murderers for a deserter who we knew was a deserter at the time, by the way. And he gave this person, remember, he took him into something at the White House. What's that garden that they have there?
The Rose Garden. His parents were there, and his father said a Muslim prayer.
Yeah.
Or spoke in Arabic. Or
Yeah. His dad was really out of it. It was the strangest thing. It was totally surreal. Bush would have got crucified for this. Absolutely slaughtered in the press. And he would have been measured, or he would have been mentioned in paragraph 1 and paragraph 2. I'm down to paragraph 9. They haven't mentioned the involvement of any person in the administration or Obama. No decisions made, no questions made by conservatives during the entire process. They haven't mentioned a thing of interest at all. I was shocked that they covered the story. You know, they're blaming it on the military. They're blaming it on the military. These guys have no shame whatsoever. I'm just shocked. All right, so we're in paragraph 9 here. Senator Lindsey Graham gets a mention, and he doesn't mention anything about the administration during this one mention, if you can imagine. Paragraph 10, Senator Roger Wicker, Republican of Mississippi. They talk about him asking the armed services. He's on the armed services committee. So they're trying it back to the military again. No mention of the administration. No mention of Obama. No mention of illegal prisoner swaps. No mention of the Rose Garden. No mention of the fact that this guy was a known deserter at the time and people died trying to get him back already. No mention at all. 11, 12, 13, paragraph 14, paragraph 15, 16, 17, 18. They go all the way down through this whole thing. They don't mention Obama even one time in the entire thing or his administration. It's outrageous. It is outrageous. I just can't. Oh, I think I got to go see a mental health. Could you get somebody on the phone and just see if they're, or maybe I just have some chunky soup. Soup is good food. Stay tuned. I just love Wednesdays, Wing Wednesdays. Sometime, and I don't know, when should we do it? Early 5 o'clock? Is that all right? All right, early 5 o'clock hour. We're going to be giving away 20 wings, $20 worth of wings. Oh, and whatever else you want over at Wings and Things. What a great day Wednesday is. We're going to have Senator Dunleavy is going to be with us shortly. He's going to be with us at 4:30, and he is something that I had talked about, and I don't know, maybe it leaked out, or maybe they were thinking about it in parallel. That often happens, I find. But I thought that the real difficulty with Common Core was privacy. I thought the real difficulty with Common Core and the strong constitutional grounds upon which parents should stand and say, if you can't tell me what kind of demographic questions about, I don't know, what kind of guns I might have on property, you're going to ask my children what kind of guns I have on property? Who the heck do you think you are? Why don't you just register me right now? How about you just put a little scan code right on my wrist? What are you talking about? You guys are going to ask that kind of question.
Yeah, and then yesterday on one of the groups I'm on, somebody said a math question up in Fairbanks, said something like, do you think that it's more important to something about your government or your family? I mean, it's a math question.
Ooh.
Do you have more, I don't know. It's something about government and family. Like, which
affinity?
one? Like, choose.
Yeah, if you got to choose between your government or your family.
And that was math.
Well,
and that was Common Core.
That would be very interesting. Okay, I'll ask that of everybody out there. 569-1080. If you have to choose between the government, who's going to give you health care, they're going to take care of your parents, they're going to feed you if you're hungry, or your family, what does your family care about you? They haven't even called in 24 months. And the last time you had a 3-minute conversation. You hate to see them around holiday time. You don't want your family. Who's better, the government or your worthless, stinking family? Okay. And if you got asked that on your math test,
and that was a 4th grade question,
wouldn't that be a fair question? Now, what they're telling us, I just want to be clear. Hanley, the commissioner of Ed, was on the program, and he explicitly said, those questions are not going to be asked on the Alaska test, but we have not, other than his, and he literally promised me, because I said, you're going to give your word. He says, I do. Those are not on this test. So he did. He said, he promised that those things were on this test. I do know that they're going to be on tests all over the country.
Well, and they call them surveys, too.
Well, what about
throughout the year?
ASD? Aren't they going to be on ASD's test? Because we have a much more conservative state government, even under Walker. Walker may be more conservative than Parnell. We actually don't know, other than on gas line stuff. But for because he kept Hanley on, right? And Esther Cox was put on under Parnell,
yes,
I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and they're fighting Esther Cox. It's one of the things we want Dunleavy on. Oh, I wanted to give you this, and we're going to play a clip from Senator Dunleavy here in just a moment. But they just found out that one of the pilots got out of the cockpit and could not get back in. This is on that plane that crashed with 150 people on board in Europe, in France. And so the pilot goes out from within the cockpit area. He leaves one pilot in the cockpit. He knocks lightly on the door. This is from the cockpit recorder. There is no answer. Then he hits the door stronger. No answer. I had a feeling the only way that we would actually, that this could have crashed like that is nobody had control of this plane. And whoever was in that cockpit was non-responsive. So whatever happened when that first pilot went out, the other guy, something happened to him, I think. Go to the phones here, 569-1080 and also 357-5868. Tom McGrath, welcome.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi.
I was at the assembly meeting for part of it last night, and then I went home and watched the rest of it. And
dedicated public servant. I will translate that for everybody out there. God bless you.
But the school district budget, from what I could gather and what I looked up today, one of the reasons that they're increasing and hiring all the extra teachers is that they have too much money.
64 new teachers, and
right.
Somehow they ended up with a whole well over $10 million in extra money.
Well, they have more than that because they're only allowed to have 10% in their reserve account, 10% of the annual budget. So, 10%. So they've got like $120 million.
Whoa.
Which
that ain't changed.
Well, and you have to, you can only get up to 10% in your reserve account. So if you're going to spend $1 billion in a year, then the most you can have is $100 million, and they have an extra 20. So that's why they need to hire the 60 some extra teachers and start more programs.
Yeah, now, the two programs they're going to start, by the way, one of them is pre-K, and the other one is reading by 3rd grade. So,
well, and I thought we had talked about pre-K, and there's been quite a bit in the newspaper about it.
The earlier time we can get those kids away from their parents, there's rotten parents that people have. I mean, honestly, wouldn't we be a better society?
Well, I didn't think that we had decided as a community that we wanted to do pre-K yet.
Wow.
So I guess the Anchorage Assembly and the school board has decided for us because we're probably too damn stupid to do it ourselves.
Well, Tom, don't you think that this is an important? It changes a culture. This changes society to get kids away from their parents as early as possible to make sure that they look. You got to get back to work. This is what Democrats, the left, has always thought. This is what the communists thought. Okay, when I talk about left here, I'm talking about communism. You are a worker. That is your job. Your job is who you are. You need to get out of raising your children. Leave that to the state. The state will take on that. And that's what they believe. So the earlier they get you away from your children, the better off your children are going to be in their minds, which to me is crazy, Don.
Well, and I understand some of that because I know there's people like you that you homeschool some of your children and then you send them to Holy Rosary Academy. And only 96% of the kids that go to Holy Rosary finish college. Mm-hmm. So there's something wrong.
And the rest go to the military.
And then there's somebody like Bonnie who homeschools her children, and they'll probably succeed too, and we can't have that.
No.
So
not a good plan.
So I can see where Eric Croft needs to take all of our money and educate
Tom, we've become
correctly.
Once again a liberal town. And if coffee, you agree with me, by the way, Coffee Dingman wrote a horrible piece on coffee today, and he's just going to get crucified. Watch this stuff roll out. Is he electable? Is he going to be electable by the time Berkowitz gets done with him?
Well, I don't think so. And I think what's going on is, one is Dingman working for somebody's campaign.
Actually, Dingman said to me he is working with Hal Crow's campaign.
And I've often wondered, too, who's the most liberal guy in the race? Is it Hal Crow or is it Berkowitz?
I don't think that they disagree on virtually anything. I think Berkowitz is probably a more conservative businessman, if I had to guess.
Now, I did read the answers in the paper this morning to the question about, what do you see as the priorities in Anchorage? And Dembowski and Coffey both said, police, fire, basic infrastructure.
Yeah,
so that was the gist. Ethan and Halcrow, if they were elected mayor, they're going to stop by your place and have coffee with you every morning.
Oh,
and they're going to tell
sweet.
They're going to tell you and everybody else in Anchorage how to live your life that day. And
they do know. They're very wise people. They know best. Halcrow actually said, I want to take a certain percentage of people's permanent funds, take it away from them so that they can't spend it how their family needs it. I thought, I don't know if you've ever had kids, Halcrow. He probably hasn't. But sometimes that money's got to be used in order to fix the roof. Honestly, you can't take the money away from people.
Well, Halcrow has a silver spoon.
Yeah.
So
he doesn't know. He doesn't
know, and Berkowitz has a silver spoon, and he
Tom,
doesn't know.
We got a great question in front of us. Who is going to be the mayor? Who's electable against Berkowitz? That is a great question.
I think Amy Dembowski, to my way of thinking, she wants basic infrastructure, police and fire. And that's what I want.
She's going to be a people's mayor.
Yeah.
That's the way I say it.
And so I think, just call her the mayor. That's the way to
call her the mayor. I appreciate it. Thanks so much, Tom. 569-1080. And just to let people know, I have contributed to Dembowski's campaign, but I do try to be fair. I will cover what's in the news, and I always give Coffee, I give some background so that people don't get too worked up over this, because the onslaught's going to start after the primary for Coffee. They're going to make sure that he can get through the primary, but then he gets slaughtered like you've never seen. And another mayoral candidate actually said that. Let me go to Catherine. Catherine, welcome to KOAN and KVNT.
Hi, Glenn.
Hi.
glad to hear Tom speaking out about this school district budget. I just couldn't believe it.
They even called it controversial at KTUU, if you can imagine that. It increases. We're losing $3.5 billion a year, and it increases spending at ASD.
Yeah. And then I didn't realize that deal about their budget reserve.
No, they didn't explain that in the paper, by the way. The news piece that I read on it did not give as much information as you just got from Tom McGrath, who knows more about this stuff. I wish he was a reporter. Do you know how different our city would be if he was a reporter?
Yeah, he'd be great. I just really got to give kudos to Jennifer Johnson on her questioning, and Tom, the superintendent, Graff.
Oh, yeah, Ed Graff.
Oh, God, he looked like a complete idiot standing there. Oh, no, well, we're going to go with what the governor said, weeks ago before he submitted his budget and cut me. So we're going to go with those numbers. We're not going to pay any attention to the cut numbers. We want to keep spending. I don't understand why they don't have to do zero-based budgeting on all of every penny they spend.
Well, Catherine, they don't, because we haven't won a school district fight for a long time. And we lost conservatives on the assembly, so we don't have a majority of the assembly. We got to win elections.
We've got to win elections.
We got to win elections.
Get Amy in, and I would hope that she'd have the balls to veto that budget.
Well, she certainly voted against it yesterday, and I would imagine that she will continue to vote against expanding the ASD budget. Thanks so much, Catherine. Oops. Let me go to Karen. Karen, we just got a little bit of time. Welcome.
Yeah, hey, I was there last night, and it makes no sense to pass an ASD budget when we have no monies allocated from the state, but they refused to acknowledge that last night.
Oh, you don't think that they're in charge, Karen? Well, see, this is the thing. We're conservatives. We're not in charge of anything. If we have to beg for people to do what's right, this is the teachers' union. They are in charge. They are running things.
You come back from the assembly meeting wondering if the assembly is representing ASD or if they're representing their constituents.
Well, guess who turned out to vote last time, Karen? And if we can't get out to vote, then we don't deserve anything out of this assembly, which is exactly what we'll get.
Right.
Karen, thanks so much.
Thank
I appreciate it. 357-5868. Senator Dunleavy will be on with us just after this. A very important privacy bill coming up. Stay tuned. 27 minutes before the hour, KOAN and KVNT, the Glen Biegel Show, 569-1080. If you've got questions about your parental rights or your rights versus the public school system, Common Core, a lot of intermixing of tracking, data tracking. This is going to be used across the entire country. Will our right to privacy, which is explicit in one of the amendments to our Constitution, our state Constitution, recognize an individual right to privacy. Will that be supreme, or will it fall to Common Core? We're going to be on with Senator Dunleavy in just a minute. Let me tell you about the hour sponsor for this hour of the program, Dr. Dan Kiley, 562-9209. If you are looking for best-in-class services with a caring touch, if you might have spent maybe a little too long not going back to the dentist, and now it's time to get your life back on track, you have no idea how much longer, how much better your life will be if your teeth have that nice, clean, fresh scent. And that's just what Dr. Dan Kiley creates for his the people who come to see him. And it's a wonderful service that he gives. I want you to give him a call, 562-9209. And he's also the one person everyone needs in their life, a conservative dentist. He's at 4050 Lake Otis Parkway. Dr. Dan Kiley, lakeotisdental.com. Let me go to the phones here. And Senator Dunleavy, Mike, welcome. Hold on. It's me. Hi there.
Hey, Glenn. Thanks for having me on.
It is a pleasure. I want to make sure we get the Senate bill numbers correct here, because I have a feeling a lot of people are going to want input on these, knowing that we have fully implemented Common Core here in the Anchorage School District. And even though we have not done so at the state level fully, that this should be a little bit more of a point of interest here in Anchorage than anywhere else.
I would hope so. I would hope these bills would be of interest to folks all over the state of Alaska.
Yeah, well, I have no doubt. So we're talking about Senate Bill, is it 80 and 89?
Yes, 80 and 89.
Okay, walk us through these bills and why you think they're needed.
Well, let's go with 81st. 81st is a bill that would take back from the executive, the Department of Education, as part of the executive, would take back from the executive the ability to approve state educational standards, state standardized assessments, and approve taking on grants from the federal government. This bill currently in law was seated years ago, way before I and most people got here. The ability to approve standards, take on assessments and implement assessments, statewide assessments, and take on grants, including the spending and funding as well as mandates from the federal government, was all ceded to the executive years ago by the legislature.
Wow. So that Senate Bill 80 is what we're talking about. We're talking to Senator Dunleavy here on the Glen Biegel Show on KOAN and KVNT.
Right.
We're looking at dramatic changes. Common Core, they sold it. They said, it's going to be cheaper. These standards are going to be higher, and everybody needs to implement them, and then everything will work out in education. One of the things we found, and actually I had Hanley on, I don't know whether you heard this. I bet somebody in your office did, but Hanley was on the program, and he found out that one of the grants that they had almost explicitly broke our privacy rights. And he brought an assistant attorney general in to say, this grant is not going forward. There is a real problem here. I need to get a legal opinion.
Yeah, I wonder if it was at the answer grant, the longitudinal study grant.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's it. $4 million, and boy, it really was going to have the opportunity to expose all kinds of data that would leak out of deed.
Yeah. So, right. So, it's what I try and do, Glenn, and I have to say this up front. What I try and do is I try and separate the issues from the people and the intent. So where I'm going with this is simple. So the legislature years ago ceded its authority. I mean, years and years and years ago, probably decades ago, actually, ceded its authority to the executive to determine the state educational standards assessments and to take on grants. we have a very strong executive form of government here in Alaska compared to other states. And so what you have is the Department of Education has an appointed board by the governor, and the board appoints the commissioner. In other states, in some other states, the commissioner runs for office as an elected, and board members run for office and elected. But this is a strong executive. So you have that, and then when the legislature ceded its authority, its control over the approval of standards assessments and taking on grants, you have a situation where your educational system in these areas are detached from the people or the representatives of the people. Now, this was fine, and this was fine for some time, but in '65, under President Johnson, under his Great Society approach to things, you had the first iteration of ESEA, Elementary Secondary Educational Act in '65. This was the broad, long-reaching grant, along with its mandates, that every state, it's in every state in the union. And the latest version in 2001 was No Child Left Behind. Well, as we saw, more and more control was being asked for exerted by the federal government through its funding and its mandates. Lately, we've had a situation where under President Obama, and this is a whole other issue for a whole other time, but under President Obama, under the U.S. Department of Education, Secretary of Education Arne Duncan unilaterally changed the nature of that approach under No Child Left Behind without congressional approval. So changed it so we have a thing
and sort of dares us to say, hey, you tell me that I don't have this authority, which is something that this is the way he treats the executive branch regularly. He did this with the Bergdahl. We just found out that Bergdahl, totally different subject, but was a deserter, and he went around congressional authority and said, I dare you to try and stop me.
Yes, and we have, I mean, there's not enough time to go through all the executive actions that are being taken that are impacting our lives on a daily basis.
Just to know, though, that there is a fundamental change, a fundamental shift, and a reason for this bill, because we're finding the federal government in more and more control over state policy. I found out something, Senator Dunleavy, who's here on the Glen Biegel Show, that we have 80% of our Department of Education and Early Development, DEED, employees are actually funded by grants that come from the federal government. I mean, honestly, who are they going to respond to? Who are they interested in representing?
Right. So basically, we have fallen asleep at the helm, and we've been woken up the last couple of years when we discovered that some of our data was being, our phone calls are being listened to, and our emails and our websites are being followed by agencies such as the NSA. And now we realize that when we go to a store, a box store or a hardware store, oftentimes we're asked for our phone numbers or our email if we want a receipt sent via email, or what our phone numbers are. And so more and more people are saying, why do we have to give this information up? Well, getting back to 80, and then I'm going to switch over to 89 real quick. 80 basically takes back the authority for approval of standards, assessments, and taking on grants, takes that authority back to the legislature. So in essence, the department, through a committee made up of no less than 50% would be parents of school-age children, because parents and their children are the primary consumers of educational services that we deliver. It's felt that they should be part of this process. So theoretically, or in practice, I should say, the Department of Education would work with a committee made up of parents and others, to review our standards, review our assessments, and then come to the legislature for us to approve those standards and assessments.
I like that process. I like that process a lot. So this sounds to me like a great bill. Tell me about the possibility that it's going to get through, if people are interested in the bill, and everybody who is interested in Common Core and trying to figure out how to limit its reach here in the state of Alaska has got to be interested in this bill. Tell us who it is, what committee it's going to be on. That's probably going to face the most difficult time.
Well, I'd like to believe it's not. I'd like to believe that both sides of the aisle, this is an issue, because we have a series of bills being introduced by both Republicans and Democrats that deal with personal data. And so this will be going to education, and we'll go to state affairs after that. I would be surprised if there is resistance to merely having the legislature have a hand as the representatives of the people on educational policy. Because as you know, Glenn, when the U.S. Constitution was being developed, this was one right the states did not give up to the federal government. We retain this right. And this is a result of a creep, however you want to word it, over the years since 65. States have allowed themselves to come under the shadow of the federal government more and more. And as I said earlier, as a result of NSA issues following our looking at our data, as a result of just going to a box store and being asked what your phone number is, people have gotten to the point where they just want to be able to know that what's happening in education, you know, is the 3 R's, and is not. It's controlled by some extent, or a great extent, I should say, by either local school boards or the state of Alaska. This helps us. This helps us as a legislature retain our connection with the people and with their educational system. So I think it rebalances.
Senate Bill 80, Senator Dunleavy is on record there as saying he would be surprised if it's not stopped. I would be surprised if, or you'd be surprised if it is stopped. I would be surprised if it's not at least somewhere in the House. I'm thinking the Hess committee, wherever it's going to go in the House. I would be surprised if they didn't try and stop it. And I think that's where people are going to, because I think it'll sail through the Senate. I think you're right.
Yeah. So let me know when you want to go on to 89, Glenn.
Yeah. We're going to have to probably, well, give us a little bit of a taste here, because we're going to have to go to break. I'm talking here with Senator Dunleavy. He's got a couple of bills which have to do with Common Core, and the reason why they're important to everybody, because not all that many people have kids in school anymore, and maybe a lot of people aren't worried about it. This has to do with data tracking that follows people their whole lives. Like, do you have guns in the house? How do you treat your children? You know, as your parent ever hit you? You know, I mean, just things that. What if your child's upset that day? What if you told me couldn't go? What if they answer A on every one of the questions? I mean, think about the impacts of just going to a test, being too tired, not paying attention, answering the wrong question. Could have lifelong privacy impacts on your family. And that's a fairly serious situation. So we're talking to Senator Dunleavy about that, and Senate Bill 89 is even more on track for the privacy concerns that a lot of people have with Common Core. Go ahead.
So again, 89 is a parental rights bill. And basically what we're saying here is that parents have never given up their rights, never given up their inherent rights to oversee the education, upbringing, and welfare of their children. This particular bill pertains to education. So what we want to do is just reiterate, not develop, because these rights have always existed, but again, rebalance the relationship between the state and parents. And what this bill would do is, if a parent feels that there's something, there's a course, there is a lesson, there is an assessment that they feel is not in the best interest of their child, they can keep the child out of that particular activity. Now, what's important to remember is that back in 1998, there was a bill passed by a conservative legislature that had
Senator, hold it right there. We're going to come back to this. We're talking about Senate Bill 89. You're listening to Senator Mike Dunleavy here on the Glen Biegel Show, KOAN and KVNT. Happy Wing Wednesday, everybody. We're going to give that Wings and Things gift certificate away shortly. Stay tuned for that. 14 minutes before the hour. Above and beyond service, that is what you're going to get. Payless Car Sales, 677 Auto, always treats the military great. I was over talking to Ali a little earlier today. He's going to be on with us tomorrow. I love small business people. I just love them. Payless Car Sales has the best online rating by far, almost 5-star. I mean, it's so close to 5-star, and they work so hard on that. Not asking people to give them a 5-star rating, but making sure that every car sale was a good fit, was just what the people needed, and then took care of them. They even have their own shop to make sure their cars are top-notch and operate just as they say. Give them a call, 677-AUTO, 919 East 5th Avenue, and online at paylesssales.com. You can also find some other cars on Craigslist. So if you go out to Craigslist, this kind of complicates things because I tell people not to be a Craigslist loser like me, but you can actually go find a good car from Payless Car Sales on Craigslist. So make sure to go check that out. Always under NADA and a great deal for you. I got a number of questions here for Senator Dunleavy. If you want to go ahead and click them on. Senator Dunleavy, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here, Glenn.
I need to ask you a few questions. And the first one, we're talking here about Senate Bill 89, which has to do with a parent's inherent right to either approve or object as they see fit to whatever it is that the school wants to do with their children. It's always been clear with sex ed, that this is a family issue. They need to decide how that's done. Anything having to do with religion and religious issues, those are parents to decide. We're going to make sure that it's explicit in Senate Bill 89, from my read of it, that it includes assessments which might get into demographic information for all 400 different points of data that the feds want to collect on you.
Yeah, and I want to make this clear, Glenn. This doesn't have anything to do with assessments that are developed and administered by teachers for looking at how well students are doing in terms of content areas. This has to do with standardized assessments and other national or again standardized assessments, such as your what we're going to be experiencing here in a couple weeks. So basically, again, if a parent feels that it's not in the best interest of their children, or they're concerned about where that data is going, under this bill, the parents could refuse to have their child tested. Keep in mind that these particular assessments that are happening now have no relationship to the child's grades, have no relationship to the child, whether they can be promoted from one grade to the next, and have no relationship to whether they can graduate or not. This is merely to collect information. And, I have to say, and I have to be fair, this is, there may be some folks out there that this is a sinister plot. I don't say that flippantly, but there may be some people out there that want this data to market it, to make money off of it, to profile people. There are a number of good practitioners out there. As you know, Glenn, I am a public school educator. There are a number of good practitioners out there that believe that by getting more data, they can help children. The concern, though, is that given what has happened the last couple of years with what's happened nationally,
with our personal data leaking into areas where it shouldn't go.
Yes.
Senator Dunleavy, you're not going to be on with us much longer. Here's the first question. Can this bill be passed so that it's retroactive to this year, the current school year that's going on right now?
I do not believe so, Glenn. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look into it. That's the first time I've given it some thought as your question there.
Okay. Well, think about that, because a lot of people are worried about the test this time. They don't want any of this demographic information. Right. And while we have had promises, nobody's seen this test from what I've said, and these promises are very late in coming. And
right. Can I say something, Glenn, real fast?
Yeah.
If people go to our social media, our Senate social media, as well as our website, we have posted on there some steps that parents could do this year. They can write a letter saying they do not want their child to take the test. You'll go onto that website and you'll see questions that were asked of the Department of Education. The Department of Education has no plans of sanctioning any parents or child if they refuse to take the test.
So that's good news. So people already should know, if you don't want to take this test, if this test worries you in any way, anything about it, that you haven't been given strong enough, clear limitations on the test, you can just object to the test, and no repercussions will come. Let me ask you about the potential repercussions for people who are in correspondence schools. Will they have to repay money if they get out of a correspondence school. Do you know about that regulation?
That is a local school decision. The Department of Education is not going to sanction public school homeschool folks either. So,
will they be able to re-enroll?
That is, again, Glenn, that's up to the local school
Up
district.
to the local district.
Meaning Matsu, my understanding is in Matsu, this is not going to be an issue.
Hold on, Bonnie.
Okay.
Bonnie has talked to these guys about it. So, well, go ahead and give it to us real quick.
I've got to ask really quick. It's up to the legislature to secure our privacy. We are concerned about our privacy issues. So you need to stick up for us to the districts. That's our concern.
And that's why I'm on the phone right now.
I know, and I love that. I love what you're doing, but our districts are...
What do you want them to do, Bonnie? I don't
Well,
understand.
the privacy issue, there are some parents who want the test to just be stopped for right now. Just put a stop to it.
Well, parents can for their children.
Yes, but we're saying that the districts are telling us that we might have some kind of consequences for that, like having to pay back funds.
There's nowhere in the Department of Education that says there'll be consequences for parents. Here's the deal. Let me give it to you. This is the easiest way to do it. The state right now, as the laws are, the state Department of Education is compelled to administer the test as we speak right now. But it's our contention that parents are not compelled to have their children take the test if they don't want to. There are inherent parental rights. And when talking with the Department of Education, they are not arguing with myself or others they're speaking to on those inherent parental rights. They feel they have a job to administer. I'm saying we as parents have a right. If we don't want to have to take the test, we don't take it. We simply, as a courtesy, write a letter to that effect, politely give it to the school principal, and for this go around at least, understand that during that testing time, you may have to find other arrangements for your children. But other than that, you are a parent. You have the right to keep them home, for example, if it's an unstable.
You just write a letter to clarify, this is my position as a parent, this is why I am uncomfortable, and I do not want my child to do X, Y, or Z, and it's the contention right now of Deed and everybody who you've talked to, you will not face any consequences. Senator Dunleavy, I know you have to go. I just wanted I wanted to ask you one thing about Cox, Esther Cox, who is on the school board, and she's asking to be let back on. What is your thought here? What is your biggest concern about her?
Oh, Glenn, I didn't even give that any thought. Miss Cox has been on the board for a long time. She's been a long time educator. I think there's folks that are concerned that they may want to just have a different view in there, a different individual to look at education as we go forward. But to be honest with you, I've had nothing but professional and pleasant conversations with Miss Cox. Where this is going to go, that depends upon 60 legislators here in a couple weeks.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll be keeping an eye on that. I know you questioned her very closely about this. You did a really good job. She came back and said parents have this right, so I'm glad you got that clarified. Thank you.
Thanks. I got to run.
All right. Thanks so much, Senator Mike Dunleavy from the Valley. Should we bring on Reinbold now? No, we don't have time. Laura Reinbold is going to give us her take. They had something on the Alaska pipeline that I want to get some clarity on about all of the process where they took her off all the committees. They took all of her staff away. I need to get some clarity on that from her. And then she wants to talk about House Bill 85. Lots going on the program today. It is Wing Wednesday. Yeah, wings and things. Actually, should we give it away right now? We'll give it away. We'll do caller number 3 right now. If you want a Wings and Things gift certificate, give us a call. 569-1080. I love Skillet. And I'm not talking about the things they sell at Village Inn. I love them guys too. But Skillet, that's the band you're listening to there. Hero is the name of it. What a great band. It's so exciting. You're listening to the Glen Biegel Show. 5 minutes after the hour, we gave away some wings, did we not?
Todd
is
the winner.
I love it. I love giving stuff away, especially Wing Wednesday. What a fun day. Middle of the week. You never know what's going to happen. Let me tell you about the hour sponsor for this hour of the program. It's A&A The Shop. If you have a Subaru, well, congratulations. You know you've got the greatest car in Alaska history. We almost always had a Subaru in my family, and while we probably tried to kill it many, many, many times because we have lots of boys who are just learning how to drive the Subaru around, they just wouldn't die. And one of the reasons they don't die is because Alaska's premier independent Subaru service center, they're out there. Best warranty in the business, A&A The Shop. Online at aatheshop.com, 562-3919 and 696-2096, the hour sponsor for this hour of the program. I would love to hear from you. And here is a superstar. How about this? Hey, Representative Reinbold, after Allie Zirkle, she was in an arm wrestling contest and I was trying to figure out what kind of a super person name. Do you think I labeled you fiscal woman or fiscal girl?
Okay.
So now you have a super title.
Well, I met amazing. I got to eat dinner with her at a fundraiser, and boy, she's definitely a superstar. It was just a delight to sit.
Well, I looked
her.
at her arms, and she looked pretty rough. She got some serious guns on those arms.
She's tough.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. In order to get through that whole Iditarod over and over and over again, you got to be tough. And you can tell she splits her own firewood. So tell us about what's going on. You were on the Alaska Pipeline, so you made the big leagues, and I'd love to hear what the effects of you saying to the caucus. You know, you said some principles. I agree with the principles. I don't see them in this budget. So tell me about it.
Well, I'm not backing down. I want to see the plan, and we're working on our own plan, how to restructure government. We're working on our own plan, how to save for future generations and to live within our means. If we don't see it, we're going to go ahead and be working on that right now. So that's very, very important.
So you're going to help the caucus make good on its promises, which were what? There are 4 things that they promised, right?
Right.
And this was what everybody agreed to when they went in to form this caucus, including the Democrats, including the very left-wing Republicans, including the establishment Republicans, and including the conservatives like yourself. They all went in and agreed to 4 things, and these are the things which you're trying to work on right now. What are they again?
That's right. Well, first of all, it says live within our means. My question is, how are you possibly living within your means if year after year we spend billions in our savings? Again, it says we will save for future generations. How is that possible when our savings, our state statutory budget reserve is just about gone? Within months, it's going to be gone. And our constitutional budget reserve, if we stay on this path, it will be gone in about 2 to 3 years. If we expand Medicaid,
I heard that they
need
$4 billion that they pulled out of the stock market so that they could pay their current bills.
It's ridiculous.
Wow.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And that's why I put in House Joint Resolution 19. I hope to goodness it passes. It's not quick enough, but basically it was a statement immediately. We should try to only spend 10% because it does look like this crisis is going to linger and we are going to be in a world of hurt.
Laura,
very, very
you
soon.
wrote that bill not for the legislature because they're not going to give you the time of day. They have people scared. They've got them running scared that if they support you in any way, you know the way that city works. So they're not going to support that resolution in my mind. This is for the people. You wrote a resolution to change the Constitution for the people to try and have the people say, you know what? We want limited government. We don't want you guys to spend all the money in the piggy bank in a couple of years.
Well, I understand that, but by the time it gets on the ballot and things like that, it's going to take time. And so this is a message I believe they needed to hear right now. I think a 10% draw out of the constitutional budget reserve is enough right now. They can use the other slush funds right now. They've got a bunch of money whittled away all over the place, but we must protect that constitutional budget reserve if we want to have essential services in the future. A couple other things, a couple of those other principles is that we will identify the core functions of government and prioritize. We must do that. I've been waiting for years for that.
Did anybody do anything on that one, by the way? Because I'd be interested to hear it.
Well, I know that Mia Costello had started taking on the long range plan. It's a very, very complicated process, and then she ended up running for Senate. But we're looking into that. But I think that the caucus needs to do that.
And if they don't do it, you're going to help them. You are writing up a plan for how do we balance the budget? What does that mean? How do we save for future generations? How do we establish priorities for government?
Right, and you have to work and organizations on that from across party lines, and organizations like Commonwealth North. They have an outstanding. I'd really encourage all people to go to that Commonwealth North. A lot of the recommendations in that plan are things that I've been saying for years.
Yep.
And these are businessmen and women, Democrats, Republicans. It's very impressive, the people that they have on that. And
Laura, here's what's amazing to me. These guys went out on a limb. Commonwealth North, they oftentimes will do things when it's not really the easiest thing to do. The easiest thing to do is just sort of keep your head in the sand and wonder what's going to happen next. They step out and said, hey, here's a whole plan, which sort of helps you prioritize, gives you some at least some guidelines on how to do this. I thought it was a great idea, and I had them on the program.
And that's right. And the thing is right now they're still playing kick the can down the road. I'm done with that game. I'm absolutely done. Pretty soon, I think, if we don't get our House in order and our Senate in order and our fiscal house in order, they're going to be playing hide and go seek. Because people are going to be wondering.
They're going to get out of town because they're not going to want to pass that level of income tax or property tax or business tax or whatever. So you know, the one thing I'm sad about, by the way, Laura Reinbold, and the 4 principles which you talked about, Alaska has to have jobs because people have to get off welfare.
I totally agree. And if we expand this Medicaid, this state is going to have serious issues.
All right, I want to keep you on because I came up with a gambit, and I'm convinced that I was wrong, which I don't say very often. Bonnie, you'll back me up on that. You're listening to the Glen Biegel Show. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We gave the wings away to Todd. Congratulations. 357-5868. Taryn's going to be with us with Laura Reinbold, Representative Reinbold, after this break. Stay tuned. Making it easy to get home. Oh yeah, we just got to keep the radio on even after you get home. That's okay. We'll bring your kids into the future, or we'll let them know the most important things that go on every day, and give them something to laugh about. We try to laugh on the show as much as we possibly can. I think I have, and I'm going to tell people about this after the next break, my new theory on why God created the universe. I have this. I witnessed something that every once in a while you just pick up on something and you think, oh, man, I think I just figured something out. Earhart Roofing is out there. They're the best in breed. They're the best in business. Earhart Roofing, there's no job that they cannot do. Residential, commercial, industrial, the latest in technology. You get a 50-year roof on your house these days, and that is extraordinary. That's because they're great at what they do, and they can ensure, and the manufacturers of these materials can ensure that your roof will last that long. That's really saying something with the kind of weather that we have up here in Alaska. 345-5555. If you're thinking about roofing, I want you to think about Earhart, EARHART, and they are Better Business Bureau Business of the Year for 2010. And that's across all businesses, not just roofers. We actually have a number of good roofers. The best one out there. Make sure to include them in your bidding process. Let me go back to the phones here, and I'm going to bring on Laura Reinbold. And I had somebody. Do you think we should bring Taryn on at the same time? Let me do that. I've got both of you guys on. Taryn,
Yes,
welcome
hello.
to the program, and Representative Reinbold's on with us too.
Hi. I'm not sure if you wanted
Yeah, can you
Representative
go?
Reinbold to go ahead and comment or not.
Well, Senator Dunleavy, you had some thoughts on this, and I wanted to get into whether or not the House is going to be able to pass any of these bills that Dunleavy had, Senate Bill 80 and Senate Bill 89. What were your thoughts on these, Taryn?
Well, I'm just wondering if everything is put back into the district's hands and things are put back into a more local control level, how can parents be sure that the districts are going to go along with this if their paychecks are still being issued by deed and, Department of Education, and if they're getting pressure from deed, to go any certain direction?
Well, I think municipalities issue school teachers, they issue their pay.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Well,
But
the
real question, I think
superintendent.
the real question I think you're asking is, how do we make sure that the Anchorage School District doesn't have the right to implement Common Core? That is a great question. I don't think Dunleavy's bills get all the way to that level.
Or that any Alaska school district doesn't implement a Common Core copy and paste with a different title, with all the exact same data mining requirements. As of right now.
Well, his bill would address that.
Okay.
Right now, his bill explicitly says if you object to anything having to do with these tests, you can pull your kids out and your kids won't be part of them.
Right, yeah.
So
and
that's
as parents, I know we have the right to do that. However, homeschool parents enrolled in one of the publicly funded programs are being told you may face, being denied re-enrollment next year.
Taryn, I have a feeling they're going to threaten that, but I have a
Mm-hmm.
feeling, and they could. You kind of sign on to take these tests, except for the tests have changed a bit.
Right. Well,
I think it's a fair
the
thing.
contract changed too. I signed something when it was stated that SBAs would still be what's in effect this year. So what I signed changed mid-year.
Yeah, and I think that all this is going to be brought out. I'm on the board of Alaska Home Educators Alliance, and we are going to be fighting really, really hard for all of these homeschool parents so that you are not treated differently than any brick and mortar student, and then you have as many rights as you possibly can. In these transition years where Common Core sort of rears its ugly head and everything is sort of in flux and changing, a lot of times administrators, from what I've heard, can't figure these things out either. So there are going to be a lot of people fighting on your behalf. Just stay with us, okay, Taryn?
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much. Let me go back to Representative Laura Reinbold. Representative Reinbold, you have any thoughts on Dunleavy's bills, particularly on whether or not they can pass in the House?
I think they probably both can pass. They're a step in the right direction. I actually believe that the parents already have these powers. The parental rights. It's not a bad thing to get them in statute.
Wouldn't it strengthen, though, the homeschooler's case to say it's right there in law? It says I can object to these tests. I'm not going to experience any repercussions from objecting to this test.
Right. Well, I believe that they already have that right. It's in federal law, and we can go into that. It's not going to hurt to put it into state law.
Okay.
But when you look at it, closely, it does not repeal Common Core. It does not prohibit these assessments. There's not enough known about these assessments. One, they're extremely costly. People don't understand the adaptive testing. They have not had the time to implement these standards. And even, are these the right standards? I have a real problem when 500 clinicians have said these are not the right standards. They're not appropriate for younger ages. And at the high level, these standards dumb down the kids. They're ridiculous. And so, one, these standards need to be repealed, I believe, immediately.
Well, I think stealing the power away from a teacher to decide what's best for the student and away from the parent to decide what's best for my child, that to me doesn't make any sense. And that scares me. That just does not make a lot of sense. You got something coming up on Saturday, by the way, that I hope that you're going to let people know.
I absolutely do. We're doing what is the Common Core. We're unveiling the concerns of the Common Core. There's billions of dollars, through the municipality, through Gates, through the U.S. Department of Education, through DEED, that are pushing, this Common Core across the nation and across the state. All as we're doing is volunteers exposing the concerns of the Common Core. What is the Common Core? Are these the right standards? Is this a federally controlled program? Are these assessments the right thing for your children? How can you opt out? Because you do have the option to opt out through federal law right now.
Well, I like that, because one of the things you brought up there is a huge point of contention. And Hanley, I think he was a little hazy on this one, and it was about whether or not these are federal. What the method by which federal control is being distributed down to the states. Is it monetary? Is it regulatory? How are they accomplishing it? And so you're going to clarify that on Saturday.
That's correct. And the real bothersome thing is that a commissioner, an unelected commissioner that's put in place by an unelected board, is determining education across this state. It's ridiculous. And
Senator Dunleavy's bills may help with that.
A little bit.
Okay.
It does help a little bit. It's a step in the right direction, but it is absolutely not strong.
It's not a
enough
repeal of Common Core. Do you think that we could we get a majority to do that right now?
Well, I think it's critical. I think if they take the time to understand what has happened to education, and that's why I'm going to the people.
Okay.
The people, I can't find anybody hardly that's for it. And the power belongs to the people, not a commissioner, not an unelected board. The power belongs to the parents already. It needs to be kept that way. And that's why I'm encouraging people, don't be bullied by bureaucrats.
Well, Dunleavy had to really drag that out of board member Esther Cox. I mean, he really had to get down into the weeds and real clear with her about what it was that she was trying to say. And she said, I think that they do. I don't really like the I think that they do. I would like absolutely. That's what I want to hear.
Esther absolutely should not be confirmed. I'm not going to play patty cake with that. She, on multiple levels, I was at the State Board of Education this past Friday. She didn't even vote for a waiver for one charter school to not have to take these early literacy tests. These children should not have to be taking these right now. Even in Finland and things like that, they don't start until much, much later, in second grade oftentimes. I used to, my kids were in school over in Norway, and it's just ridiculous that they want all these testing done. It's taking time away from the classroom, and teachers need to be freed up to teach. They're teaching to these assessments right now, and it's just critical. Esther Cox has not shown me that she wants to protect parents' rights or states' rights at this time. She's really been a champion of this Common Core and passed a bunch of regulations that I've tried to block unsuccessfully, but it's ridiculous. These people are making such harsh, big decisions and really stripping our parental rights away, and it goes back to the parents. It's critical, and that's why I think Dunleavy's bill is in the step in the right direction, but it still allows for these assessments. We don't know enough. They're too costly, and it's coming unglued all over the nation right now. People are walking out of these assessments. Even the kids, there's a huge movement, and so I believe we should stop them immediately, even if it's just based on the fiscal crises that we're in. We have 12 full-time people working on these assessments at the state level. We're spending $25 million contract, and dozens and dozens and dozens of IP people, test proctors. I could go on and on. This is costing the state a fortune. In a fiscal crisis, this is not the direction we should be taking.
Laura Reinbold on the phone with us, and I would love to get your questions for Laura if you have them. 569-1080 and 357. She didn't have I want questions for Laura, Representative Reinbold, if we have them. 569-1080, 357-5868. So there was a pipeline story about you getting kicked out of the caucus. Tell me about that process and tell me what you think could go better. Is it better now that you're out of the caucus? I mean, that may sound strange, but I do want to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, it's very empowering. I will tell you that. A lot of the grunt work is done in the committees. It's important work, okay? But really where the power is on the floor when you get to vote yes or no or have a big voice on the floor. I'm definitely able to have a lot more independence in that measure right now, and I'm really, really enjoying that a lot.
Well, you could be in front of 500 people at this event on Saturday. It's where again?
Well, it's Tutor Bingo.
Tutor
First
Bingo.
of all, I want to thank Tutor Bingo because people are offering these rooms.
Some good conservatives who run Tutor Bingo. People may not know that, but a lot of conservatives run these bingo parlors.
And it's going to be from 10 a.m. to noon. There'll be a very brief. We like to do longer ones, but that's all we could reserve the room
10
for.
a.m. to noon. Tutor Bingo. Let me go to Jeff quick.
Saturday.
Jeff, you're on with Representative Reinbold.
Yeah, I just had a question. Having ethics rules previously, why didn't you resign from the caucus for the vote on the budget instead of just voting against the budget, knowing the consequences that was going to have?
Good question. You sort of agree. I think it's verbally, Representative Reinbold, that you're going to vote yes on the budget on the floor. You voted for yes on part of the budget, but not this part of the budget. And what was your belief at the time that you voted no?
Well, if you listen to my speech, one I did vote for the mental health trust budget, and the second budget I said I would vote for a budget as long as we did the work in the House first. We needed to get it down below what we had it down. So I think that's very, very important. On one of my subcommittees, we ended up making a lot of cuts. I worked closely with the chair, and then they were added back in House Finance. The courage to make these cuts just was not there.
Well, you have stood up for your principles, and I think the principles of the caucus, and that's what's going to play out over this next year, where people try to get their representative on record. What do you want to cut, Democrat? What do you want to cut, Republican? I don't want to hear any excuses. I don't want to hear how complicated it is. I want a number. And that's what I'm looking forward to in the next election cycle. Representative Reinbold, thanks so much.
Glenn.
All right, you bet. 357-5868, 569-1080. Karen will be back with us just a couple minutes. Stay tuned. 27 minutes before the hour, KOAN, KVNT, different signals and different websites. We're podcasting. You go out to glenbiegel.com. We have historical podcasts there, and I would love to hear from you. 569-1080. That's the number, 357-5868 if you're out in the valley. This is your ride home. Glad to be with you. Name is Glen Biegel, one of the sponsors for the program, Country Financial. If you are trying to work out for your family, what are your responsibilities and what should your future look like? There is no better place to go. Sitting right across the table, you're going to go through a lot of graphs, a lot of charts. This is where you're at as far as your, your life security now. Call insurance. Are you covering your house? Do you have enough? There are a number of questions you really could get surprised at. A+ superior rating, Country Financial, and their number 866-COUNTRY, spelled
COUNTRY.
Tried to get her, but you just wouldn't fall for it. Let me go to the phones here. I'd love to hear from you. 569-1080, 357-5868. Tracy, welcome to the Glen Biegel program.
Hey, thank you, Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, I understand now from listening to Senator Dunleavy that I will no longer have any consequences because I homeschool my children through a program. But my question is if the attendance rate falls below a certain percent, then the school district has to write a plan of improvement and the deed has to approve it. So my concern is we might be okay for this year, but are there going to be the following year as a plan to increase attendance at testing?
It's a good question. A lot of that stuff it's not written in stone. And my guess is if 100 people go before the school board, first of all, if there's one inappropriate demographic question on any of these tests and our parent groups and AHA, Alaska Home Educators Alliance, gets a word of it, you are going to see a firestorm such as you have never seen in state history. We are going to burn that Capitol down. It is going to be really, really serious. So I just want people to know we have been promised specifically by Hanley that those questions are not on the test. If they are on this test, there will be hell to pay. So that's my view on that. As far as repercussions, my guess is this, Tracy. IDEA is a huge school. It's the biggest school in the state of Alaska. And if we have 100 parents all come to the State Board of Education meeting and say, look, you couldn't promise me, or you did promise me, but frankly, I didn't believe it because I've seen a lot of these problems all over the country, and I didn't want my kids to take this test. I don't want you to punish the school district. You make sure that some parents get to review these tests, and we want to know exactly what's going on with Common Core. We don't want to be given blank-faced promises. My guess is they're going to back all the way off.
Okay.
This is politics, Tracy, and I know that politics, you think, well, politics shouldn't. These people do not want trouble. They do not want trouble. That's the last thing that they want. So and I think a lot of people are going to object to these tests because they have been places. Look, they're totally inappropriate demographic questions, totally inappropriate. And Bonnie pointed out something in Fairbanks. They've already had a question on whether or not you would choose your family or the government if you had to choose one. What kind of a question is that?
It's absurd.
Yeah. And that's my take on it. My take is politics is going to be played, and it's going to be, look, we're going to play hardball. We're not going to fool around with these things. Stand up for homeschoolers' rights.
Excellent.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
All right, don't panic. And it might be hard for IDEA. I know a lot of people on IDEA are a little bit worried because a lot of the people organizing right now about these tests are IDEA families. These are mostly conservative people. They do not want the government tracking demographic data, which could be totally fraudulent. I mean, what if your child goes in and marks A on all the front page, and the fifth question is, are you beaten by your father? Or it's that I have a gun in the house and it's not secured. I mean, who knows? They ask 400 different data point questions all across the country. They're trying to find out what your income is. They're trying to find out how well fed you are. They're trying to find out how your parents treat you, whether or not they like you. I mean, there's a gun question. It's a crazy thing.
Well, and keep in mind that in 2 years, these tests are going to be adaptive.
Mm.
So if you don't answer a question a certain way, it's going to keep asking a different way, or it will change the whole test based on what you have answered.
I don't understand at the very, very fundamental level, by the way, because I have kids that are highly advanced. I have 9 children, and I have some of my children are highly advanced. Some of them are just a little bit advanced. Some of them are average, and some of them are not average. I'll just let you know. They could not perform to the same standard. Boys are about 2 years behind girls, by the way, at second grade, first grade. I mean, it's pretty dramatic. A girl can sit there in a desk and be perfectly fine, be perfectly happy. That boy is going to be tearing the desk apart. Just can't sit still. Not ready. By third grade, most boys are ready to start participating fully in class. Unfortunately, a lot of them are being drugged by that point. I don't like one size fits all. I just don't. I know this is going to sound very strange. I trust teachers to assess children and say, this is my plan for them. This is what I think is going to be best. This happens every single day in the school that my kids go to, Holy Rosary. And I trust parents to say, I don't like your math program. Your crazy everyday math program is not working for my child. I'm taking him out of your stupid class. I'm done with you. We're done. We're finished. I don't have to go argue it to the school board. I don't have to go figure out how to convince 9 people got elected by the teachers union to agree with me. I'm just taking my kid out. That's where I come from. So I think if it's down to teachers and parents, and particularly if they're on the same page, you're going to find a very powerful classroom there.
You know, what gets me through all this is how scared everybody is. And I just want to remind people that they are our public servants. We are the ones who are their bosses. And so it's in our hands to do something. That's why I've chosen to refuse. I am a little concerned about the compliancy rate and what it will do to schools. But there's also something to consider, what you were talking about with the questions. You know, we as homeschoolers, we don't necessarily teach to the test. They're practicing that all through the whole school year. They're in brick and mortar schools, but we don't teach to the test. So when our kids get in there, are they going to be rated, you know, below proficiency?
Probably. And my understanding is these standards are much higher than the ones that have previously been given. They said about 30% of people who were previously proficient will now be below proficient.
Well, they expect more in the lower grades and less in the higher grades.
Yes, that's kind of the sense that I got as well. I just don't believe in national standards. I don't believe that we should take power away from teachers, and I certainly don't believe we should be taking power away from parents. I don't know. It is somewhat of a difficult situation. I don't know that you necessarily should jump. Bonnie jumped. She got freaked out by this test. I promise you this. I will just promise you this. As a board member of AHAA, as somebody who helped write the charter school laws, started a charter school, have been involved in education for the last 10 years, talking about me, if they have an inappropriate demographic question, hell will rain down on Juneau. You will not see anything like this because we have literally been promised that they are not on this test. And so if you're worried about it, don't take the test. But I just am telling you, if that happens, you will see something which you have not seen in a long period of time.
And then today I found out that they're already giving practice tests in the brick and mortar schools.
Oh, so they can get their kids ready.
Yes. And it's interesting because I know parents who are refusing, who have said, you're not going to take this test, but then the school doesn't give any, you know.
Don't give any warning about the practice test.
Right.
All right. You got to be aware of what goes on in your school. I feel bad for people. I took on a second job so that I can send my kids to a private school. And I understand what kind of discipline structure they have. I understand what kind of respect structure they have. I like their curriculum. I understand the teachers and how they grade and all that kind of stuff. And I get to choose all that stuff. And I feel so bad for people who are locked into a school that think they think and they know, a lot of them know that their parental rights and their culture and their values are not being taught or reflected in their classroom. And I feel terrible for people. Just know this: if push does come to shove, and you feel like you need a better partner, and you're going to look for one, private schools are not all that expensive.
And Glenn, you're just supporting everybody.
You go out and work. I'm supportive of everybody.
No, you're supporting everyone. You're supporting public school kids. You're supporting homeschool kids. You're supporting your own school, your own kids, and Medicaid expansion. You're going to be supporting them some more too.
Yeah,
whoever supports us.
I wonder. Some people have tried to convince me against. Here's my gambit. I don't like the idea of having a $2.1 billion monopoly which controls children's minds. This is also known as public education. I mean, to me, there's so many difficulties there. There's so many problems because I know about 1%, you may not have heard this statistic, but it's a pretty important one. About 1% of a teacher's union employee salary goes into Democrat coffers over the course. So, you know how your church are supposed to give 10%? Almost nobody does. The highest one, I think, is 7%. And it goes down dramatically from there. But teachers union employees will give about 1% of their gross pay to a Democrat candidate. So if we give them $2.1 billion, do you know how much that means we have to fight against? $20 million. Now, a lot of that goes to Obama, and millions and millions and millions of dollars got consumed from the Begich campaign. So we can be thankful that Begich ran and lost. But I'm just saying, if you think about that, just trying to fight the political fallout from $2.1 billion in public money going into a public monopoly, oh my gosh, it's disastrous. So just from that standpoint. So it's too expensive. I don't think we get great education. Some people do. If you're in South High School, you're not leaving. You got a 97% graduation rate. You got AP classes coming out of your ears. I think their band just won. the band from there just won. It was from Service. Just won a national competition. Everything's going right for you. If you're in East, if you're in West, maybe things are a little bit more dangerous. People use a little worse language. It's really not a safe place for kids, that kind of stuff. We're always going to have public schools. Always. I want everybody to understand that. No matter what we do, granting equality to private, parochial schools, we're always going to have public schools, and they're always going to have at least 80% of the children go there because they will learn, they will grow, they will improve, and that's just the nature of competition. Once something better comes along, you just don't, okay, well, we quit. Nobody's going to quit. People always will love their local school, their neighborhood school. There's a lot of ties, a lot of affinity to that. They'll just get better. That's the way competition works. This is the Glen Biegel Show, KOAN and KVNT. 14 minutes left in the hour. This show is just rolling right along. Senator Dunleavy's been on. Representative Reinbold's been on, and I would love to hear from you. 569-1080. Give us a call. 11 minutes before the hour. Love to hear from you. Number of articles caught my eye. This is the Glen Biegel Show on KOAN and KVNT. Mike Dingman has a review, but at about 1/1000th the decibel level that Dan Coffey will be running into. It is a rough article, hard to read. I mean, it talks about somebody who Dan Coffey wrote a letter on behalf of, Joseph Boehm, pled guilty to sex trafficking and drug charges. November 2004. He quotes here from a letter dated April 20th, 2005. Dan Coffey wrote in support of leniency for, I promise you, I'm going to make a promise to you. One of the mayoral candidates told somebody who I know, related it to me. You've never seen what's about to happen to Dan Coffey. I agree with that. I mean, I think we have seen it. I think we saw it in the dome. We saw millions of dollars being spent. The mayoral position in Anchorage is the second most powerful political position in the state. It is a stepping stone for governor once you become, or senator. I mean, our senator is Senator Biegel. All he needed was a fraudulent lawsuit filed on behalf of the federal government, which was all undone after the election was over. That's all he needed to unseat Senator Ted Stevens. I know you don't take Berkowitz very seriously. He is a Berkeley lawyer. If you can imagine, Alaska is looking at giving the second most powerful political position in the state to a Berkeley lawyer. Who are we? What have we become? Well, we got a lot of public employees here who just want their piece of the pie. We got a lot of environmentalists who got shipped up here from Berkeley. And those guys are so strong. The LGBT community is all Berkowitz or Halcrow, but they're going to fight for Berkowitz. I mean, this is going to get to be a wild race. But it is my opinion. I guess I can't promise you, but it's my opinion that Coffey is not going to be electable. If you want to get a sense of why, and I know this is hard. It's very hard to go out and read things like this article. But it's not just going to be Mike Dingman saying it. They will have recordings. They will have personal experiences. I'm telling you, just like the mayoral candidate said, we've never seen anything like it. It's going to be awful. It's going to be ugly. I'm going to ignore all of it after this primary is over. If it's Berkowitz versus Coffey, I'm going to ignore it. Most people won't, though. Most people can't. Because I know what we're up against. I know what the unions have to say about me. I know what the unions have to say about people who I consider to be great politicians, like Dan Sullivan. So I know what game we play here. Are we talking about perfect examples of, the greatest of humanity? No, these are politicians. I don't know. It's tough. Well, that's what's coming up. That was a piece from Mike Dingman in the Alaska Dispatch News. Go read the comments down at the bottom. That's all you're going to hear about it. Here's another one about the Coffey race. Judge orders release of some city records on AO37. This is the get out the vote booty call for the unions here. If you ever thought you could vote for Dan Coffey and you are a union member, and let's dig up AO37. What did AO37 say, by the way? Can't sign any more than a 3-year contract. Can't give any more than a CPI plus 1% raise on any given year. You don't automatically get performance improvements just for showing up for work, and they're like, I don't know, 7th year of work or whatever. They all of a sudden get a 10% increase in pay. They signed all this stuff with Biegel. Okay. He was their boy. They were his master. He did whatever they wanted. So that's what we passed in AO37. But as far as I can remember, all they ever argued about is they wanted, I think, 16 people on a fire truck, and that if it was up to the city, they would take all the people off the fire truck and have nobody on a fire truck. They'd have these fire trucks with nobody on them running up and down the streets. It's crazy. Nobody wants firemen to be in danger. But we don't want the public to be in danger either. So you can't have 16 people on a fire truck or 4 or 5 or whatever it was that they wanted. We were following best practices there. But that's what AO 37 was about. Samoan community presses Anchorage mayoral candidates on the issues. What are the issues that the Alaska Dispatch News covered? I'm going to put a little exclamation mark and an underline. I might even put that in bold and italics for everybody. They wanted to know whether or not they were going to forcibly expand Obamacare in Anchorage. That's what the expansion of Medicaid is. An expansion of Obamacare, which we can never undo. That's what was explained to me. I'm kind of coming out. I want school choice. School choice to me is a huge issue, and I was willing to trade the Medicaid expansion. A lot of people are telling me that's crazy, Glenn. Bonnie's one of them. Look, I want to get school choice. I don't want Medicaid expansion. But I know we lose our state and we lose our culture and we have nothing left to fight for if we can't get our kids out of these schools. They're not educating anybody. Well, they're educating some people, but not in your culture. Do you think your kids believe in marriage anymore? Do you think your kids understand why marriage was the foundation of Western civilization? Have any clue whatsoever why? I promise you, unless you've told them, they don't. I asked Carol Colmo, well, do you teach people about marriage and the benefits from it in school? She said, why would we do that? Well, maybe because it's the most important social structure in history. It upon the sacrifice of marriage, upon the love that is demonstrated in marriage between two different people, we build societies out of that. Point Hope opts out of a lawsuit over 2008 Chuck G. lease sale. I like this story because you may make the case. People can't learn. Once people are on the wrong side of an issue, we just got to give up on them. Not true. How about this? A native tribe who was originally on this list started listening to the environmentalists. And you know what they heard? Cuckoo, cuckoo. They heard cuckoo. They heard cuckoo clocks going off all the time. So they dropped out of the lawsuit over the Chuck. You know what they know now? The only chance these villages have to stay open. The only chance they have to possibly support themselves without a lot of money from oil companies and a lot of oil development. The only chance they have is this Chuck G. lease sale going through and making a big difference. 47% of American households save nothing. That is really sad to me. Come on, folks, put something away. You know, get out to the country, find out what a secure future looks like. You cannot depend on Social Security. That's nuts. Depend on our own families, by the way. You knew that your kids were going to take care of you. Make sure that your kids know that you love them and that you're hoping for that. Take care of your own parents so that it continues the cycle. Tune in to the Tom Anderson Show. I'm going to say just like he does, the Tom Anderson Show. I just love it when he says that. Just get you amped up. I hope you have a great evening, everybody out there. This has been your drive home, the Glen Biegel Show on KOAN and KVNT. On the Glen Biegel Show.